So we are officially at our starting time of 2 o'clock. Thanks so much for joining us. We will get started in a minute or two, as I'm sure there's a few more people going to be joining us, and there's always a few people who are a tiny bit late. We're not going to wait very long. There will be a recording, as you just heard, of the webinar, and we'll provide it to you afterwards. So while we're waiting, I would just like to welcome you, and I'd also like to ask you a question. We'd love to know where you're logging in from today. So if you wouldn't mind letting us know in the chat. Also, what type of an organization are you from? And what is your role in this organization? So if you wouldn't mind putting that information for us in the chat, I'm always curious to know where people are coming from. Okay, so we've already got an HOA resident. We've got a director of resident services for condos, a community association in Orlando, Florida, HOA resident. So Yasmin and Layla, where are you from?
We are from all over, right? Yes, we're both from Europe. So I am British and I grew up in Belgium. And you, Yas?
So I was born and raised in Switzerland.
And where are you both today?
We're both based in Brazil. So Vinteum has a Brazil office and we're both based in Brazil.
So we are literally at opposite ends of the world.
We really are.
It is really fun to see how far away people are coming from and how we can still all connect in one place for things like this. So that's really fun. Well, it's 2 minutes after 2, so should I get going?
Go for it. We're recording anyway, so.
We are recording. I'm hoping that a few more people are going to join us, but welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in our webinar today. Finding the best software for HOAs and condos, avoiding the pitfalls, and enjoying the benefits. So this is a brand new webinar. And it's also the first time that Layla and I have collaborated on a webinar. So this has been really fun for me, and I'm looking forward to sharing what we've put together with you. So let's jump in and get started.
All right, so thank you so much for coming, everyone. Today, what we're going to do is go through how to find the best software for your community. So the idea is that you can learn more about software so that you can become an informed software buyer. So even if you don't know that much about software, you don't consider yourself to be super tech savvy, we should help you out with that today. It's going to be a conversation between Pat and I, and we'd really like you to participate as well. And for you to do that, we have a few rules. And the first one is that you should ask a lot of questions. You can put them in the Q&A box. And the second is that you can ask questions at any time. So if you stick them in the Q&A, which is next to the chat, our moderator Yasmin will ask us the questions. And if we don't get to it during the presentation, we'll answer your question at the end. There'll be a Q&A section. So please stick them in the Q&A box. If you put them in the chat, Yasmin will be keeping an eye on it, but the Q&A is a little bit better to keep it all organized. Okay, so to quickly introduce myself, as I said before, I'm British Belgian. My name is Layla. I'm the head of marketing and customer success here at Vinteum. I've been working with Vinteum for 3 years. And Vinteum is the only communication-focused platform that seeks to connect board members, managers, and residents in one place. Vinteum is a slightly strange name but it does have a meaning. It means 21 in Portuguese because we're trying to bring community associations into the 21st century. Also from Vinteum, we have Yasmin here today, who is providing technical support. So if you have any problems, put them in the chat and she can help, and she'll also be our moderator. And who are you, Pat? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, I didn't know that's what Vinteum meant, but when I checked out the French Vinteum, I could see the similarities between Portuguese and French. I had to stretch it a little bit. So hi, I'm Pat Crosscomb. I'm the past president of my condo board, and we lived through the challenge of trying to find software to help us get our job done. I've been there. We had absolutely no idea what we were doing. We tried several products. We actually started using a few of them, but none of them really worked for us. We ended up being strictly an email user, and that's the only tool that we had for us. I founded BoardSpace to build a software product that would help us get our work done. BoardSpace, in a nutshell, is an organizing tool for boards to get their meetings done faster and easier, put documents so everyone can find them, keep to-do lists up to date so that people know what they're supposed to do, and a whole host of other features as well. I'm also a big fan of unicorns, and my company mascot is a very tiny unicorn who has become quite cheeky in lockdown, and he now likes to jump into webinars when I'm not looking. So Bill, you have to stay on the sidelines. This is not really for you. So we have a quick poll to ask you at the moment.
It should have popped up on your screen.
So if you could quickly answer those questions, we'll get a summary so that we can get a good idea of where you're at before we continue. So as soon as everyone answers, and I hope everybody's answering.
We have 4 answers so far.
Okay, where are the rest of you? Please, please, please answer our little questions. Otherwise, Bill is going to have to jump in there and answer these questions. Okay, well, I think we should close it and continue. And then if we have, can we have the answers? Okay, so who is using software? We have yes, more yeses than no. And this is great. We have a few people in the process of getting there. So most people don't have any software yet. Nobody's using BoardSpace, boo-hoo. Nobody's using more than one. And then there's a few others, and there's somebody using Neigbrs by Vinteum. Awesome. Okay, so let's continue on. So the agenda for today, I want to start out by introducing a case study, which is an HOA. Want to go over the 3 common pitfalls that you want to avoid at all costs. Next, we want to get into the benefits, and there are absolutely great benefits of getting the right software for your community. We'll wrap up with some lessons learned, and then we'll have time for more questions. So again, as Layla mentioned, if you don't get your question answered during the presentation, save it up and we'll get to it at the end. So Glendale HOA is our case study organization. It is a fictitious HOA. We have made it up and combined it from our own personal experiences working with many, many, many condos and HOAs. It has 5 directors and 150 residents. When Fatima joined the board very, very recently, she was assigned the task of making their community better. Big job, right? So she started to take a closer look at her home. Before her first meeting, one of the retiring directors had visited her and brought her a bunch of banker's boxes filled with documents and also a memory stick. So great, she thought, all of our documents are available as digital files. Well, maybe that wasn't quite true. She wasn't quite sure what to do with the boxes of records. And when she opened the boxes, she realized that each box had been identified with a year, and then inside each box were file folders for each month. When she looked at the memory stick on her computer, she realized that it was organized quite differently. There were various topics. So she wasn't really sure if all the paper records were also on the memory stick, and not easy to find out if they were exact duplicates or not. So as a director, Fatima found out very, very quickly that she receives a lot of emails from the board, from the managers, and that it is virtually impossible to keep up with all of them. The owners were also sent lots of emails to let them know certain things were happening. And there was a bulletin board at the HOA that posted announcements, but it seemed to her that not every announcement got posted, and that sometimes the updates to the announcement wasn't available, so that people sometimes maybe didn't have the right time or the right date. They also had a website, but Fatima had no idea how to update it, as she wasn't technical in any sense and she had never worked with a website before. And one of the previous directors had created an online forum so that owners could chat with each other. Now, Fatima was told that it was viewed as a means to improve communications. So Fatima has a big job ahead of her to figure out how to make her community better and how to find the best software for the job.
And we're going to be starting with the common pitfalls. So we have 3 common pitfalls that Glendale just happened to fall into. The first one is failing to plan what they needed and failing to prepare or engage staff and residents. The second is going for free tools because they're free. They seem great, but they're not. It's like buying cheap wine. You just end up paying the price later. And lastly, we have buying the wrong software. And this is a tough one, but we can help you avoid this trap. So let's start at the beginning. Finding the best software takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. You need to consult with different users of the product. And in an HOA, there are lots of different users. There's the manager, there's residents, there's board members, you might have committees, you might have staff. It's a lot of different people to start using it. So you need to have a plan. So if we go to Glendale, they thought they had a plan. A board member, Luca, had taken the lead on buying the software and he was super excited about it. The rest of the board were fine with him taking the lead and they were just following along. And the manager had said, yeah, I can use this. Okay, fine. They'd all agreed. But then they actually started to use it and they didn't understand it. It wasn't like Luca had described. He kept having to repeat how everything worked and it wasn't helping. Everyone was getting more and more frustrated. And the board were annoyed that they had this software that they didn't like. So what had they done wrong? They hadn't planned sufficiently. They had followed Luca's lead without taking a step back to examine what the problem was and how they wanted to solve it. They also didn't test it properly before they bought it. They didn't go to any free demos. They didn't start a free trial. It wasn't a group decision. It was just Luca leading the board along. And when they decided to launch it to residents, they realized it had definitely not been a community decision because residents didn't like the idea of this change one little bit and they refused to even try it. So what made perfect sense to Luca just didn't make sense to other people. The board hadn't worked together. Like I said, they hadn't done free trials and they really hadn't prepped residents for the change. A really great idea is to get a group of residents together to try out a new website and organize the rollout. What do you think about that, Pat? Do you think it's important to get people all together?
Oh, absolutely. If you fail to plan, you are planning to fail.
So true.
Boards also fall into the trap of thinking that free means free. Hey, wait a minute. I'm now confused. Doesn't free mean exactly that? I think I understand English well. Well, in this case, in terms of software, free doesn't actually really mean that. Now, we all like free things, don't we? Of course we do. And boards use free tools Sometimes because they simply don't want to spend any of the condo's limited resources on software. I mean, we all know that budgets are not limitless. But when they limit their search to only the free options, this is when the problems start to occur. There are many drawbacks to free software. Many of these free options are not specifically designed for condos or HOAs. So something like a product management software might look like a good fit, but since it's designed for work teams in, say, a company, it's not worth the effort to make it work well for a board. So one particular product that we all know, I'm sure you all know it well. It's used to store documents, and its name begins with a G. It's used by many, many condos that I've talked to, and it seems great. I mean, it is a great product. It's free, and free, as I say, free doesn't mean free, but it's not a great fit for the specific requirements of an HOA to store their documents so that people can find what they need to find easily. The management of that free product takes an awful lot of time. Free products are usually limited in what they can do. This means that you're going to have to get involved with several different products to actually fit what you think you need to have done. The outcome is that these products don't integrate with each other. And so now you've got multiple products that you're using with multiple logins, and, well, not ideal. And free stuff doesn't come with very good support. So if you have questions or technical issues, you are on your own to fix them. So the end of the story is free often ends up costing you way more than you ever thought it could, because if you factor in the time of the board members and the awkwardness of using them and the lack of technical support, you're actually spending way more money than you would have thought. And it's not free at all.
Exactly. Gets to be a lot. And the opposite of that almost is buying a software that's not the right software. So making mistakes is a part of life. It's how we learn. But when the mistake involves money and time, it's very annoying. So if we go back to Glendale, they're in a bit of a pickle. They have a software. It's a bit more than their budget, but it's okay because it just about works, so that's fine. But then they run into problems with package tracking because their packages are all collected in one place rather than going out to every individual home. So they're having a problem. Residents aren't always finding the packages. It's getting a little bit confusing, a bit much. So they go and talk to the software support. Since they pay, they now have support, so that's great. So they talk to them. And when they ask what they can do to improve their packages, the support tells them they have the answer. They have a way to scan parcels that will help keep everything more organized, and it will be great. And the board thinks, amazing, brilliant, that's what we need. Then support tells them the price. And if the software was over budget before, now it is really over budget. But it'll help fix the problem. So they buy it. And it does. It does fix the problem with packages. People know where it is, but residents are still complaining. They don't always get notifications when their parcels arrive. They're confused as to where they go and when they can pick it up. Is it 24 hours? How does everything work? They don't really know. And again, possibly the board could spend more money, but it's just a snowball. It just keeps on going. And throwing money at the problem can help, but it's not ideal. You don't have endless resources. What you need to do is to be strategic. The board should know what they want. They need to manage their expectations so they're clear on what is most important. Because when it's clear what you want and what matters most, it's much easier to go after it. It's like buying a house. You compromise on something, but in the end, you have to find something that you're happy with. And the second thing to do is to put your community first. You're spending money to improve the community. So how much do you want to spend? How much will that money fix your problem, reach your goal? Essentially, you need your software to fit you, and you don't want to fit the software. Before we jump into benefits, we're going to do a quick poll on these pitfalls. What do you think about these pitfalls, Pat? What do you think is the one that you see the most?
Using free software.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many condos I've talked to who are using the one that I mentioned, the G word one. Yes.
I think it's pretty common since you don't really know, you try a lot of free stuff until it gets a bit too much and you have, meeting software and email software and document software and maybe amenity software, and it's just it gets too much. It's too much time spent, even if you're not spending any money. And what about the poll, Yasmin? Have we got a few answers?
Yes, we can
Yeah.
just wait a few more seconds.
So if you can answer the poll that's popped up on your screen about pitfalls, that would be really great.
So one example of managing expectations and where it goes wrong is if the buyer, the condo or the HOA, is thinking that the software can be customized for exactly what they're looking for.
Oh, for sure.
And that is very rarely available to do that kind of customization. And that's where things can really go wrong.
Definitely. All right, we have our answers here. 40% have not fallen into one of these pitfalls. I'm pretty impressed by that. Well done. That's pretty awesome. And when they have, no one's failed to plan, or they don't think they failed to plan. We'll have to trust you on that one. And like we were saying, 40% have used free software. It's a normal stage. All right, do we want to jump into the benefits?
Absolutely. So we've gone over the pitfalls. So failing to plan, prepare, or engage others, thinking that free is free, and buying the wrong software. So Fatima from Glendale has been listening very carefully to all of this. They've used free tools. They've used expensive tools. She now wants to know what are the benefits of using the right software. And so let's jump into the benefits, and we will come back to Glendale again at the end.
Exactly. And our first benefit is transparency. And this is a huge topic for community associations because you're trying to include so many people. You can have a very large community with loads and loads of residents, but you also want to keep staff involved if you have staff. It's a lot of moving parts. And it's the main reason that Florida decided to introduce the condo website law back in 2017, which requires condos with more than 150 units to have a website as well as a password protected area with certain documents for residents. So our Florida participants, I'm sure you'll know about this law. What you may not know is that there's an amendment proposed now that would require condos with 25 units or more to have a website. And this really shows that the need for transparency is only growing. You need it in smaller communities as well as larger communities. And what happens in Florida may roll out to other states. So it's really important to try and increase your transparency, and software can definitely help, right, Pat?
Oh, absolutely. And the whole thing with documents is that, if you're hiding stuff, you're going to create distrust. And my motto is if you share everything, then no one thinks that you're hiding anything.
Definitely.
So a key characteristics of HOAs is constant change. So these transitions happen continually. You all know what I'm talking about. New directors join the board, new people move into the HOA, and new managers are engaged. And one thing that you might not think about too in terms of a transition or a change is that current manager might be on holidays or might get sick suddenly, and another one will need to take over immediately. So the benefits to, getting that right software for your community is that handover meetings to new directors are a breeze. They're easy. Of course, it's still a great idea for new directors to learn from previous directors, but the focus of a face-to-face meeting with a previous director should be on learning about the things that are challenging for new directors, advice and, how to do things. And it shouldn't be a data dump of stuff, spreadsheets of action items, endless technical details about the website, and so on and so forth. There are better ways for that new director to get that information, and that's the software. When new owners move in, it's really critical that they know what to do. So yes, they can and should talk to their neighbors, but when they get information from their neighbors, more than one, it might not be complete or it might not be up to date. So when this new owner can go to a website, log in, access everything that they want to know, they're going to get off to a good start in the community, and they know what they're supposed to know. Now, the challenge for a new, or especially an interim manager, is that they have a lot to learn, like overnight, instantly. There might not even be the previous manager available to ask. If this previous manager's gone off sick, then there might not be anyone to talk to. If they can, of course, they should talk to the previous one, but if you're changing companies, it's not likely that that's going to happen. But when that manager can log into one place, find out what's happening on that board, they are off to a great start. They can manage the new task that they've been given to manage.
So Pat, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a question here from Carol. She's asking, I'm sure you cannot say on the recording what the G software is, but can you let me know so I can avoid? Thanks.
Well, the G software is that one that, we all use email provided by the G company, and we all use document storage provided by that G company. I guess, sure, it's Google. It's Google Docs. I can say that name. That's
gave in, cracked.
I gave in. So I hope you're not using that one.
Any free document storage, it works until it doesn't. Right? Okay. So what everyone wants to do is save time, especially as a board member. Since you're a volunteer, you want to do everything quickly, you want to do it efficiently, so that way you can spend time doing other things that you enjoy, whether that's spending time with your family, enjoying a hobby, or helping your community in another way. And when you find a good software, it helps you do that. But like we were saying earlier, you need to fit the tool to the community and not the other way around. So what does that mean? It means that you need a software that fits your needs, not forcing your needs into one product. So like we were saying with the free software, it does work, but it's not made for HOAs. So it works up to a point, but it was thought of with companies in mind, not really community associations. So after a while, it doesn't work properly, and you start to feel frustrated, and it's not very easy to transition either. But it is a step up from boxes of documents, for sure. For sure.
We have another question here. Sorry to interrupt.
Go for it.
Another question from Carol. So she's asking if the amendment to the website requirements in Florida has been passed, or is it still at the legislative stage?
It's still a legislative stage, so it's been proposed as a bill, and they're still talking about it. If it is passed, we'll definitely do a webinar about that. So don't worry, we'll keep you informed. And if we go back to Glendale, they're now organizing their documents when they upload it to their software. So no more boxes, they do have a software now. And it helps for sure, because it takes them a few minutes to organize. They can put the name that they want, they can tag it, and then that doesn't need to be redone. everything is in one place and they can streamline all the free tools that they were using into one tool, which means that they don't have to repeat work. They don't have to spend ages on manual administrative tasks. It's much quicker. And this is amazing because time is money. That's why we've got the little flying money. And as a volunteer, it may not be literal money, but it is gold. But if you're a manager, it can literally be those flying dollar bills that you can see on this slide. All managers and board members want is to be efficient so that they can fulfill the other roles in their life. The software helped you save time, Pat? Time that you can enjoy with Bill?
Absolutely. Bill is very happy that I have more time to spend with him. So we have another quick poll for you.
It's launched.
So what do you think are the greatest benefits of software for communication?
It's even multiple choice because we don't think you can narrow it down.
Yeah, communication is the big one, is the big one.
For sure.
The biggest of the big ones. And certainly I would say that it is the one aspect that everyone complains about. Wouldn't you agree, Layla?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll prove it in the next slide, but I would definitely agree. Not only in community associations, but with everything. Because it seems so basic, but it can be quite hard to do, you know? Everyone wants it in a different way. So it's a tough little nut to crack.
Okay, can we close it? Has everyone voted, do you think? Okay, so what have we got for answers here? So no surprising, they're all pretty highly ranked. Increased transparency over 50%, easier transitions over 50, saving time. Saving time is number one. Nearly 90%.
What can I tell you?
Yeah. And then improved satisfaction. Yes, indeed. Okay, so let's continue on with software. So as I said, I would say, and I think the poll supports that is the one that everyone complains about. And it's interesting here because people always say, now maybe not always, is they say they want more communication. Now, this more aspect is a bit of the problem. So many HOAs are already sending lots of emails. You know, email's easy, it's free. Here I am coming back to the free thing. However, most people would say that they already have way too many emails. So it's not really a case of more, it's really a case of better. And what better really means is more effective and more efficient. It has to get to people at the right time. And hammering them over the head with, 25 emails doesn't necessarily work because you turn people off. So the right software can make communication so much more efficient and effective. So for example, coming back to Glendale, instead of relying on this notice board at the office and only one of them, they could add digital notice boards in more than one location. Now, the benefit to the digital notice board is that they can be updated like in a flash. If the information changes, it can be updated again in a flash. So, and with emails, all these free emails is that they simply get lost. So perhaps sending an email or one or two might be okay, but then the final follow-up email is not an email anymore, it's a text message. Because once people leave their homes, they have their phones with them, but they might not be accessing their inbox to read their emails, but they might pay attention to that text message. So this is what we mean by, making that communication more effective. It's not simply more is better.
For sure. And our survey that we're doing at the moment definitely proves that. There we go. So we think a lot about communication and how we can help board members and managers communicate better. So to do that, we decided to launch this survey on issues that people face in the industry. And communication really stood out to us. Only 5% were happy with their communication. The other 95% were not happy. You can get the idea from the quotes here. The first person says that they need a more efficient platform to communicate on, and that was exactly what Pat was saying about being more efficient, not always sending more stuff, because even my work inbox is insane, but my personal inbox, even that is just full of emails, and everyone wants my attention. It's hard. Following that, we have someone who illustrates how their residents feel when they don't feel that they're being communicated to quickly and efficiently. They get frustrated, they get angry. And that's what I was saying a little bit earlier. It seems so simple, and residents just like, well, why can't they do this? It's just such a simple thing to just let me know. But if people want it in different ways, and if you're just using one channel, it doesn't always work, and people do feel really frustrated about that. And my absolute favorite is this last quote, which is communication is key. And that's exactly what Pat and I were saying here. It can make absolutely all the difference. Even difference. It's quite a claim you're going to make here, Pat.
You mean my next one?
Your next slide.
One. Yeah, it is kind of a big claim. Let's sneak it onto the screen because.
There you go.
So improved or also maintained property values. Yep. So this might not be obvious, and I bet many of you simply won't believe me. So it's not one of those benefits that's going to be seen immediately. Definitely not. It can take a lot of time. It can take several years, but I promise you that it will. Now, I guess I'm going to have to convince you a little bit to see that this is actually a benefit of software. But I'll come back to communications. Communications is key, as Layla showed in the previous slide. But you have to think of communications in a broad context. So yes, it's all of what we've said, and the best software does result in more effective communication. Owners and directors are better informed about everything that goes on. Managers and directors spend less time finding things. Now here's where we're going to get into why it matters, and spend more time making decisions. Their decisions are actually better because they know what's gone on in the past. They have their historical data at their fingertips. Boards that rely on paper records or digital files, they often can't find what they need very quickly. And you don't make good decisions without seeing data from what's been done before. When people are informed at the right time in the right way, their overall satisfaction is increased. And when they can access documents, they don't think the board or the manager has anything to hide. So overall, people are happier, directors want to serve on the board, and better decisions are what results in the improvements in property value. You need to make good decisions about what you're going to do with your limited resources, i.e. money mostly and people, in order to keep your community running well and efficiently. So I hope I've convinced everybody.
I think you may have convinced one person. Sue put in the chat, applause, applause, absolutely true. She may have been talking about communication, but I'm going to take it to be her agreeing with you.
Thanks, Sue. So let's come back to Glendale. So we've heard a lot about Glendale. And you'll notice that I don't have any pictures on this screen because it's not necessarily easy to show what they've done. So Fatima did convince the board to take time to plan. They took many, many months, and she made them wait to implement anything before they had done their consultation. They held meetings with their owners. They even sent them a survey and asked for their input. This should not come as a surprise. They asked their manager, but some boards just forget to ask their manager. The manager is a key part of their process, key part of looking after the property and everything. They asked lots and lots of questions, and now with their answers in hand, they were better able to decide what to do. So Fatima believed us about free is not free. So they set a budget. It was reasonable. It had to be. It was realistic. And they kept to it. They went out and they investigated a whole bunch of different products. They tested them, had demos, and so on. So now all these wonderful documents that were in the bankers' boxes are organized by topic. Anyone can find what they're looking for. The records are secure. They're not subject to fire or water damage. The old website is gone and a new one is now in place. Fatima doesn't have to look after the technical aspects of this website, as there's professionals in place to do that. Support's provided, the hosting is secure, everything is backed up. She, along with the other board members, simply have to update the information on the website. The forum has been completely removed. It was solving a problem that didn't exist, and it actually caused other problems. The owners were asked about it and they said it didn't improve communications. It actually ruined it. It made people angry at each other. They got annoyed, they got frustrated, and there were some nasty comments that went around. They're still in the process of figuring out that piece on communication, because it is tough. They're looking at other options to augment their simply email blasts. And one thing they're looking at is a system that will allow them to send text messages. So the process continues. It's not cut and dried, and it does take time. And it's not an easy one. It will definitely challenge the board and managers and staff to figure out exactly what to do. So let's wrap up. What are the lessons that we've shared with you today? So always start by identifying the problem or the challenge. If you don't know what the problem is, then you have no hope of solving it. And then plan some more. Don't be afraid to spend money. You don't need to spend tons of money, but I don't think you're going to be satisfied with only free solutions. Get the buy-in from everyone, even maybe the unicorns on your property. They have an opinion, at least this one certainly does. Rely on professionals to look after the technical stuff. It's not something that board members should be fussing about. And last and probably most important is enjoy living and working in your now great community.
Definitely. So once again, thank you guys so much for coming. Don't leave yet. We still have a Q&A section. If you have any questions, please post there. We also have a poll about the webinar. And if you have any ideas, any topics that you'd like us to cover in the future, please let us know in the chat as well. We would love to do another class, and we really would love to do one that helps you help your community. That's so important. As I mentioned before, we have that survey, which Yasmin will be posting in the chat. So please do answer our survey. It takes 7 minutes. It's very quick. And we will be sharing the recording and the slides with you.
And I'm sure eventually the results of the survey, what's the closing date on your survey?
End of July, so a week and a bit. So we will be sharing those as well for sure.
So while we're waiting for the deluge of questions to arrive, maybe I could ask you, what tools have you seen improve communications?
Me, what have I seen? I think the main one is, like we were saying, to use different channels. And you can find software that does a lot of this. You could have chats, so residents can talk to each other. You could have emails. Email is key, even though it can get a little bit much. But using other things like texts, as you mentioned, and calls is really important. There are softwares that send calls out to everyone at once. I know we do that. So, and it can really help if you have an emergency, you want to talk to someone quickly, call, send them a text. That way they can see it, they can answer, they know what's going on. If you need to shut the water, it's important that everyone knows. So I think having options is really important. Really important.
I think the multiple channels is really key too.
Definitely, definitely. What was that? Yeah, sorry.
We have a question here. Daniel is asking, what is the best way to organize our HOA priorities?
I really like making a list, getting everyone's input. So all the board members, as well as the manager and possibly a focus group of residents is really nice, and getting everyone's priorities and then organizing them. I mentioned the house analogy a little bit earlier, and I think it's true. You will have to compromise on something. There's no software that's absolutely perfect, but you need to know what you are willing to compromise on and what you absolutely need. What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. The compromise, you won't be able to do everything, and you won't be able to do everything at once anyway. So even
Right.
if even if you agree to address them all, you're going to have to stage them.
Sure.
Identifying the specific priorities can be really tough. That's going to take probably several go rounds. I love the idea of a focus group. And that way you can get more input. And then maybe you have to go back with a survey. Once you've got your focus group results, go back with a survey and then ask people if they agree with those.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so here's
What
some
do
other
people
topics.
want? How to build a website, what to include in a website, how to work well as a board, how to store documents, and the one that wins, how to create a communication strategy.
I am not
right.
surprised that that last one, how to create a communication strategy, is number one. I have a blog post that's about, I don't know, what's it called? How to improve communications in a condo. And it's now fairly old, but it consistently ranks, you know, my most read blog post. It's communications over and over and over again.
And we'll share that in the emails as well. We'll be including some additional resources, including what we've written about communication, what Pat's written, and we'll definitely think about doing a webinar around communication strategy. If you have any other ideas that weren't included in that multiple choice, I'm sure you do, please again put it in the chat, or you can send us an email afterwards as well. I also have a final question for you, Pat, before we wrap up. What do you see boards struggling with the most?
Well, given that the answer to that last survey was about communications, you know, I might say that, but no, that's not usually what they, how they respond when I ask them this. They talk about their documents. Now, documents are part of communications, very important part of it. They struggle the most with where do they put them? How do they organize them? And how do they find what they're looking for? And as I've said before, the majority of the people I talk to are using that famous G software. They're using Google Docs, and they find pretty quickly that it's not the best tool for boards. It's a great tool, don't get me wrong. I use it myself with my business and my personal stuff, but for a board, it is definitely not the best thing to use.
Well, the other thing as well is for residents, if they want to find anything about rules, if they want to try argue why they shouldn't have a fine, anything like that, if they want to check when they can use the clubhouse, that's in the documents, it's in the governing documents, the CC&Rs, anything like that. So it's so important for them to be able to find them easily as well.
Absolutely. No argument from me or Bill on that point.
Or Bill. Well, Bill agrees with me, so I think that's my day made. All right, Yasmin, no more questions?
No more
The silent
questions.
crowd today. That's fine. If you think of any later, we'll be sending you an email. We'll be sending you the recording. So you can answer those emails and let us know if you think of any questions later, because we can always help.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure spending this last 45 minutes or so with you. I hope it's been valuable for you. And I certainly look forward to answering a few questions that you're going to ask us in the future.
It's been amazing. Thank you guys so much. Have a lovely day. And stay in touch with us. We'll be in touch with you. Bye.